In the 5th year of my secret crush on Tina, she proposed to me. But on our wedding day, her ex-boyfriend showed up pretending to be the makeup artist. Tina recognized him right away and ripped off his mask. Our wedding venue became the perfect reunion stage for the two of them. She grabbed him and hurried away, leaving only a sentence. "Ben, sorry. I've always thought of you as a brother." In that moment, all the brilliance I saw in her was completely gone. Later, her ex had another fight with her, and she got into a car accident while driving in the rain to find him. People around us bet on when I'd go back to the hospital to care for her without complaints like I used to. But even when Tina was about to be discharged, I still hadn't shown up. She finally couldn't hold back and called, saying, "Ben, didn't anyone tell you I've been in the hospital?" But it was her rival Linda who answered, "I'm pregnant. Don't disturb us." I spent 3 months preparing for this wedding. It wasn't at the wedding that I realized something was off. But now I've hit a wall and it hurts. When was it? Maybe it was when I tried on the suit, coming out nervously, and she was so caught up in her phone, she just praised, saying, "You look great. Ben, you look good in anything." Or maybe it was at the hotel as we confirmed the venue, and she stared out the window absent-mindedly, and I awkwardly called her name. I had already started to hesitate back then. I had also, after a few drinks, told her, "Tina, it's still not too late if you regret it. Just don't play with me." I thought a lot that day. I was afraid she'd regret marrying me. I was scared that our long-time friendship would end up in an unbearable state. But I needed to be half drunk to even find the courage to ask that simple question. Yet she was more cowardly than me. She clearly hadn't let go of that person, yet she still made promises to me. She said, "There's nothing to regret, Ben. Aren't we the most suited for each other?" She also mentioned, "Sorry, Ben. I've just been really busy recently, maybe ignoring you a bit. Will you believe me? Sometimes people fall into this strange confidence, blinding their judgment, making them naive." I believed her words. From last night to now, I've been tense and excited. My palms were sweating even putting on the wedding suit. There had already been hints before things took a turn for the worse. As soon as we entered, I overheard some relatives talking about how today's makeup artist didn't seem very professional, dressed like he was about to crash the event. I was puzzled yet a bit curious because this makeup team was recommended by Tina's friends. Part of me was relieved, thinking maybe I was just overthinking things before, because she seemed to care now. When I finally went into the dressing room, I saw the guy everyone's been talking about. Honestly, I was starting to get angry. No guy wants to see such a scene on one of the most important days of his life, a stranger causing trouble. The white suit made him stand out, and even with a mask, you could tell he was a pretty boy. I didn't say anything because I wanted things to go smoothly. I quietly sat in front of the mirror waiting for him to do the makeup. But his hands kept shaking non-stop. I didn't know what was up with him. Maybe he brought his personal issues to work, but it was really unprofessional. Eventually, he messed up my hairstyle, and that was it. I couldn't stand it anymore. Just as I was about to speak up, Tina suddenly got up and pulled off his mask. In that split second, tears welled up in both their eyes. I froze. I finally recognized him. It was Eric. I'd seen his photos in Tina's computer files. We once discussed whether to delete the file or not. After all, no current boyfriend wouldn't care about his girlfriend's ex. In the end, the thought that it was a part of her youth convinced me. But today, on our wedding day, her past walked in. He pretended to be a makeup artist, turning our day into their grand reunion. No groom has ever felt more awkward than I did. All the guests were outside. Eric, eyes red, suddenly bowed and apologized. "Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to see her happiness from afar with my own eyes." After saying that, he turned and left. Tina quickly chased after him. After a few steps, she stopped, looking back at me with guilt in her eyes, saying, "Ben, I'm sorry. I've always thought of you as a brother." Brother? So was the brother in Tina's heart someone she could say, "Let's get married" to? Could a brother be someone you kiss, hug, and take wedding photos with? Just like that, in an instant, I watched her silhouette fade away, the word brother echoing in my ears. All the reasons why I liked her disappeared in that instant. All that was left in my mind was, what do I do now? I hadn't just embarrassed myself. I embarrassed my parents too. I was hesitant to go out. But time kept ticking. Tina. She sure ran fast, leaving this mess all to me. I was ready to change out of the suit and go out to explain. It's do or die. I had no choice. Just as I was getting up, the door suddenly swung open. Ben, are you still in need of a bride? Tina's sworn enemy, Linda, walked in with a smirk. I had a gut feeling she was here to mock me. I'd often teamed up with Tina's company to oppose her. Feeling a bit worn out, I said, if you're here for a laugh, have you had enough? Why bother being kind if you'll just disappoint your parents? Her eyes turned serious. Why help me? Are there any conditions? I shot back a string of questions. Why? I'm just in a good mood today and felt like doing a good deed. But since you asked, my condition is that if I help you this time, you'll owe me one for the future. I looked at her with a slightly creepy feeling in my gut. But honestly, I had no other choice right then. I needed a woman to present to all the family and friends outside. I took a deep breath, calmed myself down, and sat in front of the mirror to touch up my makeup. Then, at my dad's urging, I linked arms with Linda and walked to the ceremony hall. Linda was taller and more attractive than Tina, and some who knew Tina noticed right away. We went through the motions, but when the officiant asked us to exchange vows, Linda seriously said, Ben, you won't regret choosing me. It all felt a bit weird, and I instinctively avoided her gaze. After we saw off the guests, my dad couldn't hold back his tears anymore. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, I helped wipe his tears. Sorry, Dad, for embarrassing you like this. My dad looked towards Linda, about to bow, but she stopped him first. Linda, thank you so much. No, Uncle. I have my own motives. I've liked Ben for a long time, but he never noticed, so I resorted to this. Pretending to be a couple comes with play acting confession too. Linda is odd but nice. Linda continued playing her role, getting a driver to take my parents home. Then she drove me home. It turned out she rode a motorcycle that day. I was a bit surprised. I found out later that she originally wasn't planning to be there. The highway was jammed, so she rode her bike between the cars just to save the last shred of my dignity. My phone was full of missed calls, including from Tina's parents, who couldn't reach her. The rest were work-related, but at that moment, I didn't want to deal with any of it. Later, when the traffic eased, the motorcycle sped up. The cool wind seemed to blow away my troubling thoughts. Instead of taking me home, Linda drove to her villa on the hill. She had already set up a bath with aroma candles and a massage. Everything I needed to unwind. When I got out of the bath, it was already 10 at night. I can't deny it did make me feel less weary. The yard was filled with fireworks, and suddenly the sky was ablaze with colors. The fireworks formed words. Ben, wanna consider me? I found myself staring at the sky in disbelief. Linda's voice spoke from behind me. Sorry, I should have given you time to think. But I've had these fireworks ready for a while. Yesterday, I even thought about knocking you out just to bring you here. In the hazy light of the night and the brilliant fireworks, I noticed Linda's ears had turned red. The day's events were overwhelming. Linda lived in our community growing up. She always kept her distance, rarely talking. As a kid, I was quite the outgoing troublemaker. Even if she didn't pay much attention to me, I'd still go out seeking her company. I'd bring her all sorts of snacks. She was indifferent at first, until once, she was sick, and I ended up caring for her an entire afternoon while all the grown-ups weren't around. After that, she became someone very dear in my heart. Linda didn't have much of a sweet tooth, so back then, most of her snacks went to me. Then her mom struck it rich in business and she was sent abroad by middle school age. I was really bummed for a while, but time passed, and when we met again as adults, things turned awkward. Somehow, the company she established when she returned to the country ended up competing directly with Tina's. The two couldn't get along, and me working at Tina's company led to constant tension with Linda. So I was always a bit hesitant about facing Linda. I didn't give Linda an answer that night, partly because it was so sudden, and also I was feeling drained from the roller coaster with Tina. When did I start having feelings for Tina? It was probably during our sophomore year. That summer, she gave me a ride home because we lived near each other. Maybe it was just bad luck, but we got caught in a storm. Her car swerved and hit a guardrail. We were on the highway by then. I had a head injury, and my vision went blurry. Tina's stomach was hurt, but she still half carried me down the highway, step by step. I can still remember her constantly calling my name, begging me to stay awake. Later, when I woke up in the hospital, her eyes were red from crying. She hugged me tightly and said she was really scared something had happened to me. Was that her boundary between being just friends or more? She'd remember my birthday, even send gifts if she was out of town for work. She'd care for my injuries, made sure to have meals delivered when I was on campus, and remembered to send me things I liked on holidays. Just when I thought she might reciprocate my feelings, she punched me right in the heart. It was my birthday, and I'd decided with my dorm buddies to confess to her. I put on my favorite clothes and spent 2 hours fixing my hair. But when I got there, she showed up with another guy and said he was her boyfriend. I was too naive back then, thinking I misunderstood and had just been bothersome. After that, I consciously kept my distance. Still, she treated me like before. She said she saw me as a brother, and she shared her relationship troubles with me. She even asked me how to win Eric over. I found myself stuck in an emotional mess. Those were such painful days for me. Even when she called, I felt guilty for picking up. I forced myself to set boundaries, just being a friend. Later, her company hit a rough patch, and Eric broke up with her because of school. She drank herself silly day after day. Every time someone would contact me, and I'd end up driving to the bar to pick her up. Cleaning up her messes, she drank until she had a stomach bleed. I took care of her in the hospital while handling issues at her company. I cheered her on and asked my family for business contacts to help her out. To aid her recovery, I even took cooking classes to make her meals cleaner and more comforting. Looking back, I can't understand why I went to such lengths. Eventually, her business started picking up again. Her confession to me was casual at best. After dinner, as we walked in the park, she suddenly held my hand and said, "Ben, I think we're quite a match. Why not be together?" I was blind, foolishly not seeing the truth. She only thought I was suitable to settle with. That's why everything was casual, from the confession to the suit and the wedding venue. Why did she suddenly recommend a makeup artist? I get it now. She saw the guest list and recognized Eric at a glance. From the start, she planned to use my wedding to sacrifice her love. Seeing our wedding photos at home felt like a cruel joke. I remember the photographer telling her to smile more. What did Tina say? She said she didn't smile much and wanted natural shots. But I remember those vibrant pictures in the studio. She looked genuinely happy in them, right? Staring at the wedding photo, her indifferent look alongside my seemingly happy grin was unbearable. People are often foolish and deceive themselves. I'd seen this picture many times but only now faced the truth. I took it down, tossed it into the trash, along with everything else linking us. All those symbolic items I'd bought for us, the watches, rings, clothes, shoes, Tina used them for a day and shelved them. I dug them out from the nightstand and cleared the house of anything from the past. Just like erasing these memories. I thought about selling the house, but Tina is unreachable, and it's in both our names. I have shares in the company too, but I'm done with that. It wasn't what I liked doing anyway. I sold my portion to the highest bidder, not caring who it was. Then I realized it was to one of the founders who had fallen out with Tina. She teased, "Do men hold grudges this much? With these shares, things won't be rosy for Tina." "Think what you will," I said, "just finish the deal quickly." Do I hate her? I'm not sure. I just feel drained. I no longer want to be part of any of this. Selling to her was about the best offer, not revenge. What she does to Tina isn't my concern. I'm exhausted and I'm done with Tina. I took the money and left the city to travel at full speed. I hadn't taken a break in forever because I was always figuring out what Tina wanted. Somewhere along the way, this relationship made me lose myself entirely. But now I've got enough saved up to live comfortably. I've always been a carefree person, fond of sharing my life online. I even had a decent following. For the longest time, I posted videos of cooking for Tina. My longtime followers called me a love-struck fool. They were spot on. People who, like, you can easily tell when something's off. Just a new video about a place I visited, and the comments were like, "Dude, did you break up?" They saw right through me. I replied yes and asked a friend to raffle the valuables out from that cleaning spree. Just watches and rings mostly. The rest got tossed. Surfing on the islands turned out so much fun. I've wanted to try for ages, but was waiting on Tina's schedule. Waiting, and kept waiting until I'd worked so long and never went once. The sea is so clear. Mostly I'd sunbathe and daydream on the beach. I stumbled upon a bustling bar nearby. The bartender mixed a good coconut dream with local coconuts. I always thought it was a light drink, but 2-3 glasses in, and my head started spinning. I regretted drinking myself tipsy alone. Some sketchy guy tried to make a move, and suddenly someone shoved him off. Man, that person had an amazing figure. I was kind of amazed. They sighed. "Ben, could you be any dumber? Getting drunk like this?" I was wobbly, so she caught me. The bar was a storm of mixed perfumes. Yet she smelled good. A slightly bitter, woody scent. The dizziness faded somewhat. She helped me out of the bar and asked where I stayed. I had sobered a bit. Turned out it was Linda. No clue why. Seeing her angry was kinda amusing. I moved closer and hugged her neck, saying, "Don't you want to take me to your place? Ben, do you know what you're saying? Are you hesitating? Are women always hesitant around me?" I looked up at her. "You don't like me anymore? Am I not good looking? What's wrong with me? Ben, you're drunk." I didn't want to hear what she said next, so I just kissed her. The sea breeze felt wet. She was caught off guard, just for a moment, then deepened the kiss. In the cramped car, she restrained herself as she held me. I reached out to touch the sweat on her neck. Her eyes were kinda red. I felt a bit regretful. I wanted to leave, but she pulled me back. "Ben," I said, "there's no chance to regret." I felt like a boat in the ocean. Waves engulfed me, then pushed me out again. She whispered in my ear, "Ben, you like it?" The words crept into my heart, tickling a bit. I didn't reply, just kissed her back. No need for words. The car windows were fogged up. Lying in the car, it was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in days. When I woke up, I had no clue when she dropped me off at the hotel. Surprisingly, it wasn't far from where I stayed. She kissed my forehead and said, "I cleaned you up a bit this morning. There's hot water in the bathroom for a soak." I looked around. Drinking screws things up. I wasn't totally drunk, just a bit tipsy. But with Linda and me now, I didn't know how to handle it. Linda saw me spacing out. She just led me to the bathroom. I looked at her. "Want to drink more? But drinking on an empty stomach in the morning isn't great. Let's do it tonight?" I saw the eagerness in her eyes. I jumped in. No kidding. I shooed her out of the bathroom, took off my robe and started a bath. The temperature was just right. After the bath, I planned to slip away while Linda wasn't looking. But opening the door, she was bringing out a steaming bowl of seafood porridge. Linda's staying in the presidential suite. The kitchen here's pretty big. There were fresh side dishes she'd cooked. I admit, sleeping till now, I was hungry. Being an amateur foodie, I'm quite picky. But after eating her food, I felt she might take over my turf. I thought after eating I'd sneak out. Then she suggested riding jet skis. Kinda tempted, wanted to play. Fine, I'll leave after fun. She drove me around the sea. Waves splashed on my face. The morning sun refracted through the droplets in a rainbow. When the jet ski stopped, she suddenly kissed me on the face. I was stunned. Things were getting out of control. Before I could react, the kiss traveled from my cheek to my lips, breath mingling. I was scared of falling off, passively being kissed by her. The sea kept lapping the shore. Instinctively, I held on to her, which seemed to encourage her. She deepened the kiss. By the time I tried to push her away, it seemed like I was playing hard to get. When the kiss ended, my head was spinning. On the beach, we held hands walking back, like a couple. I was a bit anxious, trying to pull my hand away, but she held tighter. She leaned in, gritting her teeth, whispered in my ear, "Ben, there's no turning back now." I didn't know what to say. Nearly reached the hotel. couldn't help asking, "You don't mind my past?" "I do, of course. So let's treat it like a dream. Once awake, let's return to reality." As I was thinking that, she pulled me into a damp embrace. "Ben, you idiot. I mind that I didn't protect you well. I mind not returning sooner. I mind not stealing you away so you wouldn't get hurt by people like that." When Tina called off the wedding, I wasn't sad. Packing up the wedding house didn't make me sad either. But hearing this made me feel wronged. I have blamed myself more than Tina during these times. I hated my self-pity, my stupidity, being played around like this. But time won't go back. I could only keep persuading myself to move forward. But now, someone was telling me she too felt guilty. She regretted not protecting me well. I can't describe this feeling. As if who Tina always brushed off, was actually someone others wanted to handle with care. This time, I didn't refuse her hug. I'd always resisted Linda's appearance, thinking feelings came too fast, or maybe I was scared. But at this moment, I wanted to embrace this person. Two people's journey seems more flavorful than one. Linda's attentive and good with plans. We went diving together. The underwater world was poles apart from the land. Little fish swam past our faces. Suddenly someone set off fireworks above the sea. Sparks flowed down, like bright stars rising in the deep blue sea. The stars began forming letters. "Ben, marry me." Linda really puts thought into things. She said we'd missed out on too much time. In the future, it takes more effort. Otherwise, life passes in a blink. Coming out of the sea, she asked for my answer from earlier. I pinched her cheek. "Linda, you're rushing it. My last marriage ended abruptly. My parents haven't even recovered from it yet. Telling them I'm marrying again. Not to mention they can't handle it, even I'm a bit overwhelmed." Linda was exceptionally persistent on this. No matter what, she'd bring it up. At night, she seemed tireless, repeatedly asking, "Like it?" I mumbled, "Yes." She suddenly stopped, sounding resentful. "Then you won't even make it official?" I had no choice but to soften my voice. "I will." Then a torrent of waves flooded over me, inundating me one after another. We've been traveling for over a month until Linda's family insisted she come back home. She returned with me. I wasn't sure how to face everyone at first, but Linda summed it up with just one sentence. When her friends asked who I was, she said, "This is my soon-to-be spouse." Her family was already on board. Her dad seemed unfazed by our relationship and cautiously asked, "Ben, when are you guys planning to get married?" "No pressure, but I know someone who can pick the perfect date if you need it." He handed me a watch, saying, "It looks great on you, Ben." As soon as we stepped out of the living room, Linda's brother cheerfully pulled me aside. "So, you're finally gonna marry my sister? Why else would you wear our family heirloom?" Leaving Linda's house, I felt sweat on my back. Linda was smiling the whole time, but her smile faded later. When she came with me to my place, there was a package at the door. When I opened it, I found a diamond watch the size of a pigeon egg. There was a card, "Ben, wishing you happiness." This time, even Tina didn't get it wrong. I felt happy and amused as I watched Linda's frown. I kissed her and said, "She finally got something right. I am really happy." I didn't throw the watch away or return it. Didn't hurt to keep Tina's gift. Instead, I donated it as a way to give back. After seeing the watch, Linda didn't look happy. When I asked her why, she said she didn't have the right to be mad. Oh, I thought, feeling that's a bold statement from her. But eventually, I gave her the right. On her birthday, she wished for us to be official. So I went along with it. That day, we went to the marriage office. Being with someone you love can really bring out the goofiness in you. We decided to have the wedding on an island we traveled to. We didn't invite many people, so not a lot of folks knew we got married. As for our honeymoon, we planned to wait until Linda's next long vacation. Just when I thought I'd never hear from Tina again, her friend called me. She said Tina was in a car accident. I didn't feel much. I asked politely about her recovery and when we could settle our shared possessions. Her friend passed on my words, and Tina said, "Take it all." I accepted it without fuss. There are plenty of people who need money. Donating it seemed better than giving it back to her. I quickly sorted out the legal stuff and donated everything to an orphanage. I thought that would be the end of it. Later, Mike shared some gossip. You know how Tina got in that accident? Late night, in the rain, playing chase, she crashed with Eric. I just smiled and said nothing. She didn't mean much to me anymore. Their relationship seemed shallow. Because of some business I did, Tina got booted from the company. One afternoon, while I was fishing by the lake, I got a call from Eric. He accused me of kicking her while she was down. I calmly told him I sold my shares before her accident. He demanded to know why I didn't give Tina a heads up. Selling to her rival was revenge, according to him. It seemed immature. Tina used to say she wanted to protect his innocence. If that's her priority, so be it, as long as no innocent parties get hurt. Mr. Eric, I told him I sell my shares to whoever I choose. By the way, why did you run off with someone else's bride at a wedding? I didn't bother listening to his reply and blocked him. Later, I went to a work party with my buddy Mike. To my surprise, Tina's friend Wendy was there. I wanted to leave right away to avoid any drama. But she stopped me and said disdainfully, "Ben, give it a rest. Do you know how long Tina's been in the hospital? How's that my business? Just so you know, I'm married." "No way. Ben, you can't even lie right. Did you swallow everyone's confidence here? Or do you think the world revolves around just you and these two women?" She couldn't come up with a comeback and just said, "Ben, you'll regret this." The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. 6. I have a picture of my marriage certificate with Linda, and she's kept it pinned on Twitter. But to be honest, I'm kind of nervous about it. I'm always worried about what people might say, especially after what happened with Tina. In our circle, people have been treating me like a joke. But bumping into Tina's friends again made me realize the more I worry, the more they push it. So I just went ahead and tweeted, "Been happy for a long time now." That night, Linda flew back from a work trip looking absolutely radiant, not even trying to hide it. We went for a private dinner, but for some reason, Linda's stomach was upset and she had no appetite. I was worried and wanted to take her to the hospital, but she stopped me. I thought maybe the food just didn't sit right with her. So when we got home, I made her some special noodles. She picked up a bite, but then the nausea hit hard, and she rushed to the bathroom, almost in tears. This time, she couldn't convince me otherwise, and we drove straight to the hospital. We got some shocking news. Linda was pregnant. I had a roller coaster of emotions. One minute I was thrilled about the baby, the next, anxious about her morning sickness. I watched her, leaning against my pillow. Her eyes were like deep lakes with my reflection in them. Turns out, happiness is really within reach. Once back home, she was treated like a panda in the Lin family. I took charge of her meals, and I even skipped out on business meetings to be with her. She teased me for acting a little silly, but I told her I wasn't fooled. Making money is just a means to a better life, and spending time together as a family is the best life. As her pregnancy progressed, she started sleeping more. One evening, while softly rubbing her swollen legs, a familiar yet strange number called. The voice on the other end furiously asked, "Ben, didn't anyone tell you I'm still in the hospital?" Before I could respond, Linda grabbed the phone, saying, "I'm pregnant. Leave us alone," and hung up. The caller persisted, but I quickly blocked the number. Tina's issues seemed never-ending. While hanging out at the supermarket with Mike, I got a random text, "Ben, do you think playing hard to get will make her leave? Do you know how much she loves me? The car accident you had was because she was upset after I mentioned breaking up. Want to try for a runaway bride part 2? Mike was fuming and grabbed my phone. "You jerk. What is your problem? If Linda's your prized possession, keep her hidden and stop embarrassing yourself. My buddies moved on, married, and got a kid. Can't you believe it? Are you evolving your overconfident ways? If you keep bothering him, I'll post this crap online and let people tell you how gross you are." I stood there, shocked at how my usually polite and calm friend Mike could swear like that. He handed my phone back to me with a deep breath, saying, "I know you can't swear, but that's why I'm here." Tina sat in silence, staring at wedding photos of Ben sent by Wendy. The man in the photos was fully smiling. She couldn't help but wonder about his expression when they took their own wedding photos. She secretly bought the house Ben sold. Not sure why, but when she found out he was selling it, she couldn't resist. Eric had been fighting with her, accusing her of regretting. Words failed her. She might have just been accustomed to Ben's presence. Thinking their bond still existed, believing he still loved her, she held on. She waited at the hospital for Ben, but he never showed up. Her heart felt hollow. She couldn't resist calling him, leading to the confrontation with Linda over the phone. Wendy sent Ben's wedding photos after that. She had never been so flustered. Leaving the hospital, she went to the house they once set up together only to find no trace of him left. Even the couple's toothbrushes were gone, and the wedding photos too. She drove around the city, trying to remember the studio where they took the photos. Finally, she found it and went to see the photographer. The photographer looked at her mockingly, saying, "It's been forever. Where would I find them? Didn't your husband have them?" Tina was silent, feeling the judgment. The photographer ignored her and turned away, but Tina became desperate, begging, "You can find them, right? I'll pay you. I've got money." Reluctantly, the photographer searched through their computer files and found a copy of their wedding photos. Looking at Ben smiling wistfully in the picture, Tina felt a sharp pain in her chest. She took the photo back and rehung it in what was once their space. Eric called her repeatedly, but she ignored him, causing Eric to angrily text, "You're cheap, Tina. The unattainable is always better to you." Tina glanced at the text, chuckling bitter self-reflection, not even angry. She couldn't deny Eric had a point but didn't fully agree. She got used to Ben being good to her, thinking he'd always be around. Late at night, she drank way too much and the living room was filled with smoke. She remembered her first breakup with Eric. It felt like this too. But back then, she'd always wake up to a clean house. And Ben would leave breakfast and a note. It often said, "Can Tina be happy today?" She didn't want to think about it anymore. Her heart ached, and she reluctantly got up from the couch. She wanted to find something of his in the house. But she searched from late at night until morning, and found nothing. Everything about him was gone from the house. Even the tulips on the balcony had withered. She tried to understand what happened with him recently. His video account had erased everything about Tina. In his new life, there were new people beside him. Seeing their shared experiences made her eyes red with jealousy. Then she found a website with giveaways. She patiently reached out to his fans, offering money to buy those things, but his hardcore fans quickly saw through it. They mocked her harshly, and told her those things were already sold and donated in Ben's name. She couldn't bear to look at the messages anymore. Those fans' words were sharp and cut deep. In the end, she bought a matching couple's watch they once had. That day, she wanted to make one last try, but only saw Linda, pregnant, being carefully helped by him. At that moment, she didn't even have the courage to face him. The last time Ben saw Tina was when his daughter Lily was 3. He and the woman ran into each other at Disney. She bought Lily a Linabelle while waiting in line. Ben coldly pulled his child away, not taking the toy. Tina looked hurt and said, "Ben, have we become strangers like this? Remember how we survived that time? I was scared to death something would happen to you." "Scared? Huh? You almost got me killed. Didn't you? Am I supposed to thank you for not succeeding?" Tina felt a sudden roaring in her head. He knew. He actually knew. She realized she couldn't use that excuse anymore. She stood at Disney for a long, long time, until their warm family of 3 faded from view. Ben nearly forgot about Tina in his life afterwards, until Lily turned 10, and he unexpectedly received an inheritance. Tina had died from stomach cancer. Apparently, she'd been drinking heavily all these years. Ben looked at the information, feeling some pity, but mostly at a loss for words. Tina never seemed to grow up in her life. She always seemed irresponsible. Honestly, with his current status, he didn't care about the inheritance. He returned it to Tina's parents. The woman waited quietly in the car downstairs. He thought about Tina. At least one good thing came out of it. He ran from the wedding fast enough. Otherwise, who knows how long they'd have been entangled. Back home, his daughter ran to him with a sweet smile, and Linda was grilling nearby. From the moment happiness arrived, it never left.